Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. And many more, and many more, and many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. I hope that you have been having a great and wonderful day so far. I hope that you have had a wonderful weekend. I hope your weekend started off well. So I'm going to do a couple things here to make sure that my sound is where it needs to be on both channels. Let me do that. And as you are coming in, I want to say hello, hello, hello. Coming in, I want to say hello, hello, hello. All right, so sound is good over there. Now let's try our other page. Make sure everything is right. Bada bing, bada bang. Bada bing, bada bang. Right. Let's see pages. And there it is. There it is. All right, so that one looks like it's doing good. Okay, so good morning to everyone. I hope again that everyone is doing well. We are back in our reading of Malcolm, Martin, and Medgar. And today we're actually going to start off with reading about Medgar first, he and his brother, and then we are going to go to King's last section of his sermon, Tough Mind and a Tender Heart, and then we're going to close it out with Malcolm. So if you think about it, I'm trying to read each one of these books. Good morning. Take about 10 minutes on each one. So let us get into it. Also, just an update on our evening interview. We are postponing that interview. Hopefully, we're going to get it done before this month is out. But we still have a couple of technical things to work out. And we do look forward still to bringing you that interview before the month is over. So there will be no interview tonight at 6 p.m. All right? Let's go back into Medgar's life. So we looked at the fact that outside of America, Black Americans, Black soldiers during that time, um, World War II, they were able to move around pretty freely. They didn't have a lot of the restrictions that were going on in America, even though a lot of the white soldiers brought their Jim Crow attitudes and Jim Crow mindsets over to Paris. All right. They weren't as effective as they wanted to be because Paris was not doing what America was doing at that time. All right. So let's take a look at what happens with Medgar, Charles, and their other siblings. Medgar, Charles, his brother, and their other siblings had received the standard education of every black Southern child. The realization that there were three kinds of white people: the ones who hated you, but were too cowardly to do anything about it; the dangerous ones who would kill you just as soon as look at you; and the nice acting ones who, despite their kindness, wouldn't do a darn thing about the other two. My goodness. Well, I think that describes what's happening today, doesn't it? You know, you'll get a lot of, "Oh, I'm so sorry this is happening. Oh, I'm so sorry this is happening to you." But my thing is, don't y'all know that y'all can do something about what's happening? Don't you all know that you have power too? Don't you all know that you are actually in closer proximity to those doing the harm than we are? Yeah, something to think about. This lesson started young. My parents were poor, but not destitute, Medgar later told Ebony about growing up in Decatur, where black and white families lived in close proximity, as in much of the South. He spoke of a white kid who lived next door who, quote unquote, practically lived at the Evers house. Seemingly oblivious to their divergent status in Mississippi, the boys would spend the long, sweltering summers playing hide and seek, bickering over favorite toys, sharing personal treasures, or telling each other what they wanted to be when they grew up. Neither could imagine in those moments that either of them couldn't be a fireman or a ship's captain, a banker, boxer, or business tycoon, or that they wouldn't always be friends. They were just boys dreaming. They were just boys dreaming. Mm-mm-mm. It was a blissful boyhood in what felt to a child like a close knit community. It wasn't until it wasn't. Medgar told of the day he didn't even recall at what age that his friend stopped coming over. Then one day, Medgar saw his friend standing with a group of white friends. "He called me in the N word," Medgar said. The split had come. The lines were drawn, blacks on one side, white on the other. I guess at that moment I realized my status in Mississippi. Now, I don't know who may be watching today, right? But I am a Gen Xer. And I remember specifically the day that I found out that my skin color made a difference. I was not looking for the lesson, just like Medgar wasn't looking for it, and just like most black children are not looking for the lesson. But nevertheless, we get that lesson. If you're in the chat over on Life Nation, or if you're in the chat over here on Official Black Table Talk, I want you to put in the number, the age, when you got the lesson that there was something different about you that you had always thought was fine, okay, but somebody wanted to make it known that because of your skin color, you were not the same as them, or you were going to be treated differently, or you were treated differently and you got the notification that you're being treated differently because of the color of your skin. You know when my wake up call came? At 4. 4. Not 6, not 7, not 9, not 10, not 13. 4. I remember it very clearly. I was at school. I had a little white male friend. His name was Robbie. And me and Robbie were inseparable. We would be walking around the school and we were friends and we were holding hands and walking around the school together and we were playing our little games with each other. And when we would go to the cafeteria, we walked into the cafeteria and we were holding hands and we were just friends. Just two little kids doing what little kids do, holding hands. And we went and sat down in the cafeteria, ate our little food, didn't think anything of it. Came back the next day to school. All of a sudden, Robbie didn't want to hold my hand. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Robbie, what's wrong?" And Robbie looked at me and said, "I can't hold your hand." My daddy told me I can't hold your hand. You're a black girl and I can't hold your hand. 4 years old, I got that lesson. Okay. So these are the lessons that black children inadvertently get. Your parents might not be around when you get those lessons. Okay. I went home. I told my mom what happened. I was upset. I was like, Robbie don't want to play with me no more. Turns out that one of the teachers told Robbie's dad that Robbie was playing with this little black girl at school and they were holding hands in the cafeteria. So it wasn't even Robbie, okay? It was adults that decided that what they saw was not something that they felt was acceptable. And they said, oh, we got to break this up. He can't be having, he can't be holding hands with a little black girl in school. And you still have adults to this day that have that kind of attitude. So I can relate to Medgar here when he's saying, hey, the split had come. And a lot of black children, I know when I was growing up, we tended to learn that a little bit quicker. Our parents began to share with us lessons and say, hey, I know they're your friends now, but there might come a time when they stop being your friend, when they stop talking to you. Because the older they get, they're being taught certain lessons about how society runs and how society functions. There's a song from the South Pacific, right, that says you have to be carefully taught. Anybody know that song? Maybe I'll bring it up. Yeah, let me bring it up in case you don't know it. I'm gonna give you the lyrics for it. Let's see. Lyrics to You Have to Be Carefully Taught, South Pacific. There we go. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late. Listen to this. Before you are 6 or 7 or 8. To hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. That's still being applied to this day. Let's keep reading. The same split came between Medgar and the sons and daughter of a white woman their mother worked for. Their perfectly normal childhood friendship ended abruptly when they all reached school age. What is school age? 6 or 7 or 8. But especially puberty. It was then that the lines were most sharply drawn in the South, and the white children seemed to instinctively learn to fix their mouths into a sneer, to replace their black friends' names with the N word and boy, and to demand that these friends call them sir and miss, especially in front of white adults. Suddenly, they were no longer allowed to run to the creek together or even talk to each other, especially the white girls, who became instantly dangerous to even look at square in the eye. Death arrived quickly for black boys in Mississippi. Its specter began to hover the moment you were old enough to possibly catch the attention of the wrong white man's daughter, or if she flirted with you. One thing you could count on was that no white woman would ever admit to flirting with a Negro. She would let you hang instead. More than a few white men bragged about their N-word women on the colored side of town. Sometimes the ones who talked the loudest and the meanest quietly left land to those same children in their wills, producing a society of constant socioeconomic contradictions and inexplicably complicated social rules. It was a bitter irony. Slaveholders had intimately assaulted enslaved black women so routinely that they invented new racial categories to characterize the resulting offspring: mulatto, quadroon, and octoroon, based on the percentage of white the person was. Many of these children were put up for sale regardless of being their owner's child, and were often the subject of confusion and wonder at how a Negro could look so white. Now, I know this to be true because it happened to one of my own descendants. He was a mulatto, but maybe I'll get into that in another segment. We ain't got time today. We ain't got time. Slavery in Mississippi and throughout the South had been characterized by forced breeding and relentless sexual violence. Yet the sons and grandsons of the men who built that system and who fought to defend it during the Civil War built their postbellum Southern culture around the constant fear that black men were fixated on intimately assaulting white women. Yet another projection because they were in fact doing it. And even though the South's defeat at the war's end failed to stop the sexual assault of black women, these sons and grandsons of enslavers invented a palliative for their fears: lynching. In Mississippi and across the American South, black life was cheap. A black man, woman, or child could be killed for anything or for nothing, for looking at a white man wrong, as I tried to explain to someone a couple weeks ago when it comes to the Jim Crow etiquette. You could look at somebody wrong and find yourself on a tree. You could fail to greet someone with sir or ma'am and find yourself on a tree, or find yourself with a cross burning in your yard as a warning to get out of town, or you would be on a tree. And so, a lot of, even with the land in the South, a lot of that land was simply forfeited or left because people literally left town and left everything there to get away from this racial terror. So a lot of people who have land in the South is really not theirs. It was forfeited through terror. You could be killed for testifying against someone in court. Mississippi juries were, of course, all white, and until 1968, all male. You could be unalive for brushing up against a white woman on the sidewalk because you didn't jump into the gutter fast enough, for talking rudely to a white man or woman, or even to a white child, or answering yes without the sir or the ma'am attached to it. Your life was in danger every minute of every day. And that's the kind of attitude and environment that America wants to take black people back to. And black people are just not having it. They're not going back to that. You lived at the whim of any white person's momentary moods. And they knew the law, which was deeply enmeshed in pseudo supremacy, wouldn't touch them. For the first 100 years after slavery officially ended, whites in the South got in bigger trouble for killing a pig or a dog than they did for killing a black person. Slavery hadn't really ended for the sharecroppers who were still tied to white planters' land, and for those trapped in the pernicious system of convict leasing that thrived in the loophole of the 13th Amendment. My grandmother was still a part of the sharecropping system until she was 13 in Georgia. 13. So that system still went on further into the 1900s. Police existed solely to serve white people, to excuse their crimes, and to bully, bludgeon, and control black bodies. The Peckerwoods, as the rich whites called poor whites, were the most dangerous whites. Their shops and feed stores served primarily black customers, and the planter class and the sell-to-white shopkeeper class unleashed them to exercise their frustrations on black bodies. Good morning. Slavery was 70 years gone, Charles Evers later wrote, but the system I was raised in might as well have been slavery. White folks segregated the blank words, the N words, to hold us in line. They forced us to sharecrop, worked us like mules, walked on us like dirts. We lived in shacks and shanties, went down cheap, and grew old with nothing. Half of us died as children, and the other half were always in danger. You drank that with mama's milk. You knew you were an N word the very first time you rode in a car and couldn't use the bathroom at the service station and had to relieve yourself in the woods just off the road, hiding from passing cars. That's Charles Evers. The white plantation owners who ran every rural southern town closed the Negro schools during planting season so black children could pick cotton in their fields. There's a new saying going around that the past is future. It's a dog whistle. There's another dog whistle being said by the right, which is make cotton great again. You put those two things together, they're essentially telling you they want to go back to closing the Negro schools so black children can go pick cotton in their fields. Why do you think that they're adjusting the laws around children and working, especially in Florida? Go look it up. There was always work to be done. Mississippi cotton didn't stop being the finest grade cotton in the world just because formal slavery ended. When Medgar and Charles made the miles long trek to the ramshackle one room, all black school during the non planting season on foot, quote, white kids in their school buses would throw things at us and yell filthy things. Medgar called this the elementary course in white pseudo supremacy. For blacks in Mississippi, as in every southern state, everything in your life was separate. If you wanted to watch Hedy Lamarr and Tom Mix movies and work out the psychology of whether you should root for the Cowboys or the Indians, you did so from a rusty, dusty balcony while the white patrons watched from comfortable seats below. Every beautiful woman in the movies and advertisements was white. Black people were portrayed mainly as moronic, simple, and docile. Black men as dangerous to white women if let loose, as shown in 1915's Birth of a Nation, the wildly racist film that popularized and galvanized the Ku Klux Klan throughout the South and was screened as the first movie shown in the White House by President Woodrow Wilson. If you wanted to eat outside your home, you had to wait for a plate to be shoved roughly into your hands from the back window of a local mom and pop restaurant, provided they would serve you at all. If you strayed downtown, you were not welcome at the Woolworth's lunch counter at all. And to buy a pair of shoes or even a dress, you had to take it home without trying it on. When your mom dropped off the white people's washing clothes, she entered the white family's house only through the back door and didn't go far into the house, even if the white family was nice. That was just the way it was. Once you learn to drive, you quickly learn never to let a car full of white men pass by you, lest they run you off the road or shoot at you from the passenger or rear windows. Life then was humiliation and constant threat every day, all day. Slavery was technically gone, but the plantation class was determined to cling to as many of its social and economic features as possible, using every cruel means they could find. Just before I went into the army, Medgar later said, I began wondering how long I could stand it. I used to watch the Saturday night sport of white men trying to run down a Negro with their car, or white gangs coming through town to beat up a Negro, because white gangs were a thing. Yeah, they don't talk about that gang violence, though. They always talk about the other stuff. In 1932 or 1936, depending on which brother was telling the story, Medgar and Charles witnessed their first lynching. Notice she said first. The murdered man was a friend of their father's named Willie Tingle. I guess he was about 40 years old, married, and we used to play with his kids. Medgar said, I remember the Saturday night a bunch of white men beat him to death at the Decatur Fairgrounds because he sassed a white woman. They just left him dead on the ground. That was all it took back then. An accusation by any white person could sentence any black man, woman, or child to the rope, the pistol, or worse. As Charles Everts put it, in the Mississippi they grew up in, quote, killing Negroes was a white man's prerogative. They kill Negroes just like stepping on a bug and brag about it. Negro bodies were found in rivers and creeks all over the South. Charles wrote, for every Negro we knew was murdered, there were two others buried deep in the forest or fed to the alligators. Alligator Alcatraz. In Willie Tingle's case, Charles wrote that before they beat him, they tied him to a wagon and dragged him alive through the streets of Decatur as black people watched helplessly and rushed their children off the street. After that torture, they hanged Mr. Tingle's body from an old tree in the fairgrounds and shot him full of holes, cut him down, and left the body lying there. It was Medgar and Charles's father, James, who collected Mr. Tingle's body and carried it to his uncle Mark Thomas's funeral home in the company hearse. Because when you could find a body, black people still tried to give that person the dignity of a burial. Which is why most of us have zero tolerance for the stuff that we see today. We have zero tolerance for people who are downplaying what we see today. Our elders have zero tolerance for it because they know what America is, not just what America hopes to be. They know what America is, they know what America has been, and they see the signs of people who want to take us back to this. So it's not fun and jokes and ha-ha and kiki and giggle giggle. Charles wrote that Medgar asked their father afterward why those men killed Mr. Tingle. The answer had to be as devastating to a young black psyche as the murder itself, just because he was a colored man. When Medgar asked his dad if white men could kill him too, Mr. Edgars told them the truth. If I was doing anything they didn't like, they sure could. James Everts, who drove the family hearse as a side vocation, worked mainly as a lumber stacker at the local sawmills and for the railroad. He also owned land in Decatur and ran a small cow, chicken, and pig farm, and he rented 2 small houses on it. He was a tough man, never one to bow and scrape before white people. He was known to buck white folks in Decatur so often they labeled him Crazy Jim. But not much shook Mr. Everts the way Tingle's lynching and Medgar's question had. In answering his son, he had laid bare a black child's ultimate vulnerability, that in the white South in America, you had no protector, no matter how much your parents loved you and how tough they were. Medgar's mother echoed her husband's warning to her boys to always be careful around white folks. Always be careful around white folks. I don't care how nice they are. Always be careful around white folks. And that is in the DNA of a lot of black people. Because we know that this system typically favors you. So no matter how nice you are, if we get on your wrong side, and you decide that you want to exact some kind of gotcha or get back, we already know what it is. That's a lesson that every black person gets. And if you are a parent that's not giving that lesson, I don't know what to tell you. But Medgar's parents told him, always be careful around white folks. Even the ones that mean well, because sometimes the ones that mean well can get you killed too. Mm-hmm. She chastised the feistier Charles, who complained loudly that the lynching was unfair, urging him to pray on it. Because back then, praying on it was the first option. Someday things would get better, she said. It was the kind of thing black church ladies would say, but Charles didn't want to hear it. Mama, we pray all the time, he told her. What do it get us? The children had learned young that white folks hated nothing like they hated Negroes. Look at the White House lawn last night. White folks hated nothing like they hated Negroes. They would rather let the White House lawn turn into a full-fledged circus than have a black woman leading the nation. Because some of them hate nothing like they hate Negroes. White hatred dogged your heels like a shadow, Charles would later write. For months, Charles and Edgar passed Ingle's bloody clothes as they passed the fairgrounds on the 3-mile trek to their segregated school in the Decatur Consolidated School District. The bright yellow and black school buses that carried white children to their modern, well-equipped schools were denied to Negro children. The clothes had been deliberately left on display by the lynchers to rot and stink of clotted blood and gore, so that every other N-word would remember their place. Worse, most everyone in town knew who the killers were, yet they had just gone on about their business. For Medgar, the worst part of the silence from a black community that had been terrorized into submission. Terrorized into submission. Everyone in town knew what happened, Medgar said, but there was never a word in public. They left those clothes on a fence for about a year. Every Negro in town was supposed to get the message from those clothes, and I can see those clothes now in my mind's eye. I saw them every time we ran rabbits near the fairground. Nothing was said in public, no sermons in church, no news, no protest. It was as though this man just dissolved, except for the bloody clothes. And so when a community lives with that kind of trauma, when a community absorbs that kind of trauma, people often say, well, what happened? Why didn't they fight back? Because of things like this. Those clothes were left there as a symbol. You better not go and move those clothes. They were left there as a community symbol to say, if you respond, if you rebel, your clothes will be hanging out here next. And so a lot of times when we're talking about lynching, a lot of times people don't discuss the psyche or the psychic ramifications of this. This becomes a through line from enslavement to taking people out to the whipping pole and beating them in front of the community to the lynching and the leaving of articles of things like clothing. The lynching produced a desire for revenge among the Evers boys. When the school bus drivers tried to push them off the road into the muddy gutters by driving so close to them that they stumbled and dirtied their clothes their mother had carefully hand washed for them, they retaliated by throwing rocks. A year later, they decided to start selling the black newspaper the Chicago Defender. The paper offered positive stories about Black people in Africa, a palliative to the ugly and dismissive coverage by papers like the Clarion Ledger. When local white leaders shut down their trade, decreeing that only whites could be paper boys, Charles and Medgar secretly ambushed a couple of white paper boys with a hail of rocks, then destroyed their bundle of newspapers as they fled. So they were doing what they could as young people in their own way to say, we want to resist this. We know we don't have all of the means to do it, but we're going to do what we can in our own way. Get the book. All right, I know I'm running out of time here. I know I'm running out of time. Let me see. Let me read. I'm not going to go to Malcolm today since I'm running out of time. Let me finish up. Let me wrap up King's A Tough Mind and a Tender Heart. He is talking about, first, we talked about the fact that we need a tough mind. His second part was about how we needed a tender heart. And now the final section. A third way is open to our quest for freedom, namely nonviolent resistance. And so, as we just came out of reading the terror of lynching that was happening, still going on in MLK's day, you can probably understand why some people would say, Martin, we are tired of bowing our heads. Martin, we don't know how much this nonviolent stuff is going to work, Martin. We've been being nonviolent for a while, Martin. But let's hear what he has to say. A third way is open to our quest for freedom, namely nonviolent resistance, which combines tough-mindedness and tender-heartedness and avoids the complacency and do-nothingness of the soft-minded and the violence and bitterness of the hard-hearted. My belief is that this method must guide our action in the present crisis in race relations. Through nonviolent resistance, we shall be able to oppose the unjust system and at the same time love the perpetrators of the system. Well, I can tell you right now that people are definitely not in the mood to love the perpetrators of systems. We must work passionately and unrelentingly for full stature as citizens. But may it never be said, my friends, that to gain it we use the inferior methods of falsehood, malice, hate, and violence. I would not conclude without applying the meaning of the text to the nature of God. The greatness of our God lies in the fact that he is both tough-minded and tender-hearted. He has qualities both of austerity and of gentleness. The Bible, always clear in stressing both attributes of God, expresses his tough-mindedness in his justice and wrath, and his tender-heartedness in his love and grace. God has outstretched arms. One is strong enough to surround us with justice, and one is gentle enough to embrace us with grace. On the one hand, God is a God of justice who punished Israel for her wayward deeds, and on the other hand, he is a forgiving Father whose heart was filled with unutterable joy when the prodigal son returned home. I am thankful that we worship a God who is both tough-minded and tender-hearted. If God were only tough-minded, he would be a cold, passionless despot, sitting in some far-off heaven, contemplating all, as Tennyson puts it, in the palace of art. He would be Aristotle's unmoved mover, self-knowing but not other-loving. But if God were only tender-hearted, he would be too soft and sentimental to function when things go wrong, and incapable of controlling what he has made. He would be like H.G. Wells' lovable God in God the Invisible King, who is strongly desirous of making a good world, but finds himself helpless before the surging powers of evil. God is neither hard hearted nor soft minded. He is tough minded enough to transcend the world. He is tender hearted enough to live in it. He does not leave us alone in our agonies and struggles. He sees us in dark places and suffers with us, and for us in our tragic prodigality. At times, we need to know that the Lord is a God of justice. When slumbering giants of injustice emerge in the earth, we need to know that there is a God of power who can cut them down like the grass and leave them withering like the Greek herb. When our most tireless efforts fail to stop the surging sweep of oppression, we need to know that in this universe is a God whose matchless strength is a fit contrast to the sordid weakness of man. But there are also times when we need to know God possesses love and mercy. When we are staggered by the chilly winds of adversity and battered by the raging storms of disappointment, and when through our folly and sin we stray into some destructive far country and our strange feeling of homesickness, we need to know that there is someone who loves us, cares for us, understands us, and will give us another chance. When days grow dark and nights grow dreary, we can be thankful that our God combines in his nature a creative synthesis of love and justice that will lead us through life's dark valleys and into sunlit pathways of hope and fulfillment. And I feel like at times, and the time is now, that we need to know that God is a God of justice. And so I'm not praying, I haven't been led to pray anything about have mercy on the colonizer. That's just not where my prayer life has been since March 7th. Since March 7th, I've been praying, give the colonizer his due. It's time. We've had the we shall overcome, we've had kumbaya, we've had stop killing us, we've had Black Lives Matter. Yeah, we're at the part where God is a God of justice. And so I'm just saying, hey, do what you have to do in order to get the colonizer's attention. That's where I'm at. I know some other people might not be there yet, but that's exactly where I am. So don't ask me to pray no kumbaya. I'm telling you now. Don't ask me to pray it. Give the colonizer his due. Give the colonizer their due. Because the way I see it and the way I sense it, there's too much blood on the ground right now. I don't know if you guys know that or feel it or sense it, but the blood in the ground is calling out. It is crying out. When will we be avenged? And I'm not just talking about the blood in the ground in America. I'm talking about the blood in the ground from the bombings, from the destruction, from the savagery of people who just think that they can just take life and take life and take life and take life and shatter lives and destroy lives with little to no consequence. And so when it gets out of our hands, which I feel like it is right now, I feel like a lot of what is happening now is actually out of the hands of human beings. Yes, there's some things we can do. There's some things we can do politically. But there's a lot of stuff right now that is out of human hands. And as one gentleman said, it's above me now. And when it gets above us, we have to say, you know what? They will not stop the evil. They will not stop the destruction. They think that they are invincible and cannot be touched. And so, God of all creation, God of the universe, universal principles, handle it as only you can. Give the colonizer their due. That's where we stand. All right. I'm going to bring on Pastor Vin. If you have joined us for the reading today on Official Black Table Talk, I want to thank you for your time and attention. If you want to join us for the talk back, we are on our other channel, Life Nation KC. Join us over there. And it's Conquer, a happy early birthday to you. I want to again thank you for your time and attention on our Official Black Table Talk channel. Remember, we will start our full episodes there when we make our way to the new season. But tell people about this channel. We have passed our 50 subscriber mark. We're trying to move on. Let's get to 100. And by the end of the summer, we want to hopefully get to 500 subscribers. And that's our goal. So we thank you for your time and your attention. And if we don't see you on Life Nation KC, we'll see you next Monday. Be well. All right, I'm sending you that link. All right, I have sent you the join link. While we are waiting, you can tell me in the chat what you think is happening right now. Do you feel like we are at a point where something must be done divinely, cosmically? Do you feel like we are at that point? Good morning. Can you see us and hear us?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. For some reason, my other...
I can see you and hear you. It's just...
Can you hear me?
Your screen actually freezes here now. I can hear you.
Okay. For some reason, my other channel doesn't want to turn off. So I'm trying to get it to turn off over here. It wants to keep going.
Maybe that's a sign.
All right, we'll let it keep going. Hopefully they can hear you. Go ahead.
Listen. I was born and partially raised during the Jim Crow era.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to teach young people, but they don't want to listen. See, we've experienced it. I knew from day one, Make America Great. I knew exactly what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I knew. And I posted pictures on Facebook and all those things about the things that were happening to black people back then. And I said, I put it, note with it, this is what they mean. Man, they came out to me.
Hmm.
Even skin folk came out to me. I guess now they see.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, when a person has experienced a thing,
mm-hmm.
take their word.
Yeah.
They know. I saw it coming. When that man started coming against Barrio,
mm-hmm.
saying that he wasn't a U.S. citizen, he wasn't born in this country, and all that stuff, I knew what time it was.
And see, what's interesting about that is I had some questions about his birth myself, and I looked
mm-hmm.
into it. But what I didn't know at the time was I didn't know that he had started that rumor that he was not a U.S. citizen. And
mm-hmm.
I don't know how I missed that. that he was the one that started it. Maybe because I might not have been online during that time. I don't know. But it was later that I found out. I said, "Oh, this fruitcake started that." That made people had him looking into the background because I did, but I do that with every candidate. I look into their
Mm-hmm.
background and where they're born. Like I looked into how he grew up. Part of his childhood was in other countries, and how he was taught in a madrasa. Like I was doing the digging.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at his books that he had written. I looked in and read part of his books where he was talking about how, when he first, how he was struggling to identify with Black Americans, and identify as a Black man. He writes about that in his own work, and I said to myself, "Oh, that's going to be a problem. That right there is going to be a problem because if he doesn't identify with Black men, and he doesn't feel connected to Black men in that way, it's going to be hard for him to craft policies that really affect change for Black men the way it needs to be." Because if you don't see yourself as Black American men, especially, it's going to be hard for you to look through that lens to say these are the programs that need to be installed. And so we saw him get better with that as his time in office went on, and as he, went into that second term. But initially, if you go read Obama's writings, he will tell you he struggled with his identity. He struggled with his blackness. He will
Mm-hmm.
also tell you, that his mama told him that he had a charisma with white women and he should use it to his advantage. And he did.
Mm-hmm.
So, he wasn't hiding um some of his ideas and thoughts about what was going to help him in the future. So you could read those things in Obama's writing.
Mm-hmm.
You could read it in his writing. But yeah, that whole birther thing, I did not know that fool had started it.
Yeah, yeah, he did, he did. Um, and there was a time. See, now a couple of these last couple of rulings. Let's if it doesn't wake people up now, they they don't want to be woke. Carmelo Anthony, according to their law, that was a co-defense by their law. But because it was a white guy that he unalived, now we got to go back to Jim Crow, see, and we got to flip this thing because he took a white man's life. That's what this thing was about. That's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because during Jim Crow, you couldn't defend yourself against a white man.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to take us back there. You can't defend yourself against white folk.
Mm-hmm.
They could take your life and they can get away with it. But you can't defend. Don't you dare defend yourself against them and hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's where we are at. I don't care if you believe me or not. I'm telling you what is, and that's exactly what it is. You're going to mess around and you're going to find out when it come on to your doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
And don't cry about it. Please don't cry about it then. Don't do it then. Now is the time to stand up and come against this thing, because this is exactly what's happening. I know people think, well, this is America. This won't happen to me. Happen to you because this is America.
Mm.
Let's understand the true history of this nation.
I mean,
that's where they're trying to take us back to.
And the other ruling with the boy at the gas station. How do you shoot somebody in the back?
In the back.
And then you say it's not murder. Same thing.
Again, their law.
That's a Jim Crow ruling.
Yeah, exactly. That's a Jim Crow ruling. Their law says you can't do that. Why? Because they're no longer a threat. They're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
That's their law.
And not only leaving, they chased him.
You're right. They chased him.
Out of the store, down the street.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to add this to it. After they chased him, if he had turned around and shot them, that would have been self-defense on his part. Because now you're chasing him. He's trying to get away and you're chasing him. See, so this is their law. I'm just telling you what their law says. But again, their law was made for us, not for them.
Mm-hmm.
See, we need to open our eyes to that. Their law was made against us, not for them. This is why they either get off or they get very light sentences when they do those things. That's why. Because it was made for us.
Yep.
Not for them. Bottom line, we need to open our eyes, and those that want to be, how would I want to say this? That want to be adjacent to the Eurocentric point of view, the people of color that want to be adjacent to the Eurocentric point of view, is coming to you. Believe that, because they don't care. They'll use you when they get what they. Perfect example. Latinos patron.
Mm-hmm.
See, perfect example. They used them. Once they used them, they threw them to the side and said, "Oh, we're gonna deport you."
Which was wild, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
See, that's what they. And here's the part. See, there has to be a mental block on some of our parts because they don't change. It's the same thing over and over and over. This is why they thought that Iran was going to fall for, oh, you know what? Let's do a peace talk and we come to the table. You give me time to restock and then I'm going to attack you again. Iran went through that twice. They wasn't falling for it a third time with this man. And this is why now when you say, well, we're in negotiations. No, Iran is not negotiating. They put what they want on the table. They're not going to, take my word, they're not going to compromise with what they ask for.
Mm-hmm.
So until they get what they want, which is a whole lot more than they got from Barack Obama, they're not shutting down because they're actually winning this thing. They're ahead. We're the ones that's losing this because they didn't just go with the war, bombing
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff. They went economically.
Mm-hmm.
And cheap drones that they can manufacture a day. Dollar missiles and stuff that's going to take us a while to replenish. We had to go to other countries and take those back.
Now, do you notice, and we'll probably have to I'll probably have to look it up, but remember, we were supposed to be sending soldiers, right, over to the Strait of Hormuz. I'm going to look up status of soldiers in Strait of Hormuz because we ain't hear no more about that. I'm like, so are those soldiers just sitting? Have they, are they just sitting? Because remember, they were supposed to go there with the ship and storm the land, and they were making this whole thing like they were going to just surge in and take the land. So let me see what's going on. It says the Strait of Hormuz is currently transitioning from a strict U.S. naval blockade and active combat zone into a tentative ceasefire. U.S. and Iran are finalizing a memorandum of understanding to reopen the waterway, though military and shipping authorities warn that the security situation remains highly volatile. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The waterway is scheduled to formally reopen under new management terms. Although merchant traffic is beginning to move, the Joint Maritime Information Center still classifies the maritime security environment as critical. The area is still heavily congested with stranded commercial vessels, and navigation remains hazardous due to the lingering threat of unexploded ordnance. The U.S. Fifth Fleet and specialized units remain highly active. U.S. Navy recently used unmanned surface drones to rescue 2 American soldiers after an Apache gunship was downed by Iranian forces near the coast of Oman. So y'all trying to still sneak and do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now y'all having to rescue y'all soldiers because your gunships was brought down. This is a whole mess.
Mm-hmm.
The International Maritime Organization reports that the prolonged conflict has trapped roughly 20,000 maritime workers in the region, with at least 11 seafarers killed since hostilities began. So there's 20,000 people just trapped. And our soldiers are just out there in the waters, manning the waters, but while trying to do little sneaky stuff, and they getting shot down. So yeah, I wanted to check on those soldiers because I'm like, what's going on? We haven't really heard anything about it in the American news. They just it was a blip. Oh, they going out there, and now we got you know mixed martial arts on the White House lawn. Bread. Somebody said bread and circus. Give them bread and circus. Entertain them so they won't ask too many questions. Entertain them so they'll stop asking about the epiphiles. Entertain them so they'll stop asking about the ballroom that's tore down. Entertain them so they'll stop asking about the monies that are gone. Entertain them so they'll stop asking about their social security, which is being hijacked. Entertain, 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 entertain. And that's where we are. Final thoughts. Any thoughts on Martin today? I mean, yeah, on Martin today.
Martin. But listen, Martin, what he said was smart. Actually, what Martin spoke at that point lined up with God.
Mm-hmm.
See, be as wise as a serpent, but as harmless as a dog.
Mm-hmm.
See, let's be smart, let's be sharp, but still be aggressive in a easy way, in a low key way. We're gonna push and we're gonna push, but we're not gonna do it in a physical way. But we're gonna push and we're gonna demand and we're gonna stand firm. We're gonna outsmart these people because all they know is one thing: hate black people, give them what they want, and they give in to give us what we wanted. It wasn't just us.
Everybody,
it wasn't just us.
everyone benefited from the civil rights, including poor white people.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody benefited.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody benefited. And that is usually the case when black people are pressing for rights. Everybody, because we tend to have everyone in mind when we press for rights, mm-hmm. even though people never usually have us in mind when they're pressing for their rights. And again, that's something that black people are tired of.
Speaking of which, did you hear about the indigenous? One of the chiefs stood up and he said, I speak for all Native. He said, we are basically, I'm going to paraphrase, we are combining and coming together with blacks.
Oh, no, I didn't hear about that. Mm-mm.
Oh, listen, should that happen, you and I know what time it is. Somebody's going to end up getting deported, and it ain't going to be people of color. Somebody going to be leaving this man. And it ain't going to be people of color. It's going to be the people that's bringing the problems. I'm not saying all white people. I'm talking about the specific groups of people that are causing problems. Everybody else will be up out of here.
Which reminds me, I'm going to post about it. I'm going to post about it later today, probably later today. I had a white South African come on my page yesterday to try to interject themselves into black space. And I just looked at their page and I said, don't y'all got some farms to worry about over in South Africa? Why are you overhearing black people in America's business? Why are you in our business? Don't you understand if you come over here, because I know you think you're going to come over here and everything's going to be hunky dory. Don't you understand if you come over here, you're going to be treated like white N words? Because that is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happened when they came over here. And they still pressing for more of them to
Mm-hmm.
come. But I'm like, if you were smart, you would pay attention to what happened to the last batch of South Africans that came over here that said, let me go back to South Africa. They
Mm-hmm.
left them people in
And
hotels
here's the crazy thing.
with little food and lots of
Yeah.
rodents.
And little how I want to say temperature control, because we're in the cold.
Mm-hmm.
There was no heat, so but and they wanted to come here because they thought they were being oppressed there simply because they wanted everything to be equal.
Mm-hmm.
Make that make sense. But then that's the same thing here. White oppression. Oh, y'all want to be equal. Y'all want to have the same rights as us. I thought God gave everybody the same rights. That's what I thought.
But then again, it goes back to these people don't think you're made in the image of God. So there's that.
True.
They don't think you should have God-given rights because they don't think that God created you as a human being equal to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, now I can go somewhere with that because I can say He created us actually a little above y'all. That's that thing called melanin. That's directly connected to Him and the universe and the earth. Maybe that's why everything y'all do allow us to get a foot in. We dominate in it. Basketball, track, football, now gymnastics and tennis. Wow. Oh, and you don't let a couple of us get up in hockey, which is a sport that we invented, by the way, that y'all took over and kicked us out of. But yeah. Oh, and country singing, country music, y'all lost y'all mind when Beyonce did a country album, which we created, country music. And she said, oh, I'm coming back to some of our roots. And y'all just went crazy. Boy, how do I say it? Reading funds your mentality. Yeah, y'all need to do some studying and leave Fox News alone.
Fox has already told us that it is an entertainment channel. It is not technically a news station, but people keep following it like it's news. My final thoughts today are this. When history wants to repeat itself, we have the choice, we have the right to push back on the repeat. And I told somebody yesterday on my page, I said, well, they said, can this nation be fixed, or can we really, go back to what it was, or do we even want to? And I said, the reality is the way that the courts have moved, you're not going to be able to go back. I said, the only place and space we have now is moving forward. And one of the first things we should be doing when we move forward is expanding the courts. Because if we do not expand the courts, we're just going to get more of this stuff put into law because of who is on the courts with lifetime appointments. And the only way you can shift that, right, unless they actually put some of these judges up for criminal charges, which they should on the Supreme Court, some of them need to be criminally charged for what they have allowed and the compromises that have been clearly shown that they are compromised, so they can't judiciously, they don't have partiality in their judgment because they are compromised. But if they don't do that, they should at least be expanding the courts. Because if you don't expand the courts, you're still going to get more of the same thing because of who is on the courts for lifetime judicial appointments. So that's the first thing that needs to happen. we need at least 3 or 4 more justices added that have not lost their minds. So that when rulings come down, you're not just getting everything ruled by people who are compromised, because that's really what's going on. The rulings that are coming are from people who are compromised. So that's kind of where I see us at least with that starting thing. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles, along with Pastor Ben. And I hope you learned something today about the Jim Crow South. I often talk about it on my social media page, and people try to convince me all the time that it wasn't really as bad as it was. They try to tell me, they try to act like these things were not as bad as they were. But these are firsthand testimonies from Medgar Evers and his brother. And that was just one instance of lynching that they told us about. Like they said, that was the first one, not the last one that they witnessed. But there's enough information there to let you know how the communities were being attacked physically, mentally, emotionally. And when we say that this trauma is epigenetic, it's in the DNA, it's passed down, that trauma that lives in the genetics of Black people, that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. They were terrorizing communities as a collective. That's a community trauma. So even if you weren't there and see or witness the lynching, like he said, you had the clothes hanging up. When I first moved to the DMV region, and we were doing ministry in a town called Culpeper. Some of you know it. And I began to, first of all, I had to understand the lay of the land. I had to do some study and some research on the town of Culpeper, and I found out about the lynchings there. And we participated in some community events and things of that nature. And eventually, Virginia passed a anti-lynching measure. We were a part of that. And one of the things that I read before we started doing ministry in that town was that there was a lynching rope that had been left up on the tree for the residents to know. Do not overstep your bounds. And do you know how long that lynching rope had been left up? They left the lynching rope up until the lynching rope withered away and fell down out of the tree. Do you know how long that lynching rope stayed in that tree? This is documented. 33 years the lynching rope hung in the tree. And nobody moved it. It withered and fell down on its own. So think about that. 33 years, a lynching tree was identified because the lynching rope was still in the tree for 33 years and nobody touched it and nobody moved it. And Black people lived in that town. So it's not just the moment of the event. It's the memory. It's the reminder. That reminder was a know your place. I ain't got to tell you to know your place if I leave a lynching rope in the tree for 33 years. You're going to know your place because it's in the tree as your symbolic reminder that if you get out of line in this town, there's going to be another rope on left on that tree. All right. So I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for your time and attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to evil. So we're always going to encourage you to go out and be what? Light. Take care, everyone. Be well. And most importantly, be light. And I'm going to try to get my other channel to turn off now. We'll see how that turns out. Take care, everyone. Be well and be light. All right. My video is still going. I don't know why it's not allowing me to end. So I've got to figure out something here. Let's see. Let's see if I do that. No. And no. No. This is really wild. It's not letting me end the stream.